So yeah, more about this context and how the Sanitation Foundation in New York is more and more uh, able to work with nonprofits. Can you help us
Yeah.
understand who these nonprofits are? I'm saying nonprofits, maybe it's just a grassroots organization,
Yes.
not even a,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's an important distinction. So it's not really, so we're a nonprofit, and that gives us a unique positioning that we can apply for grants. We can get donations that are tax deductible, but a lot of these smaller, very local grassroots neighborhood groups are not nonprofits. I actually don't think any of them are. Some of the most well-established ones that we work with, I just asked them both this week because somebody I know wanted to make a donation, and neither of them are. It's a lot of work to go through that process to get the 501c3 status from the IRS, and it's sometimes often not worth it. So for us, it's worth it. We're a big enough organization. We do enough different things, but if you're just a group of neighbors and all you really need are some tools and Gmail, you don't necessarily need the nonprofit status. But that said, what we were finding is that there's kind of a disconnect. So sanitation department wants this activity to happen, wants to support it. We were actually tasked, the sanitation department was tasked with supporting, growing the number of community cleanups happening. So one of the things we did early on is we got a grant to purchase more tools that we gave the sanitation department so they could loan those out to these community groups. So that's one thing that has been happening all along, is that if you're a grassroots group in, say, Bushwick, you can fill out a kind of unwieldy Microsoft Word document and email it back to the sanitation department, and within 2 weeks, with at least 2 weeks notice, and kind of schedule yourself to borrow cleanup tools for a specific date and time. That said, once you do that, you have to then go get yourself to the lot cleaning unit. There's one office in each borough. So you may be in Bushwick, but the office is in Sunset Park, and there's no subway that goes from Bushwick to Sunset Park. And so you have to figure out whose car can you borrow to get there. And then the tools are, clunky, and you have to get them there, and then you have to get them back. And so anyway, some groups use that. But so one thing we did was purchase a bunch of lightweight tools, litter pickers, and smaller things rather than the bulky kind of shovels that DSNY had been giving out. But what we were finding is, with so many of these groups forming, some of them just need a little guidance on how to form. Some groups don't, want to do stuff and don't know how. Some groups want more guidance on how to access more city resources. Some groups need some capital, need somebody to help them purchase tools. And some groups just want the recognition of, someone at the city hall level knowing what they're doing. So we found there was kind of a big space where we could be helpful in being kind of this bridge between the grassroots groups and the sanitation department. And so sorry,
No, no,
go
no.
ahead.
Yeah, please go on.
So what we're trying to do, what Jenny and her colleague Catherine worked on for the past few months, was a big research project to figure out what are all the lists, what's the laundry list of things we could do to help out in this space, and how do we measure the impact of those things versus the amount of resources required. And then we kind of narrowed it down, came up with a tighter list of a few actions that we plan to take this summer. But one of them that I think we wanted to get some input from you all was, there's a big opportunity to kind of digitize a lot of the communication that's happening. And so, for example, just the simple thing is they have this clunky Microsoft Word form that you have to email back and forth. Can you just simply make that an online form? But also, there's kind of a data collection piece. So what I found out from talking to the DSNY folks is, sometimes when they loan out the tools, they sometimes get a report back from the operations folks of like how many bags were collected, but it's sort of spotty. And we really want to gather all that data because we want to be able to share that with the mayor's office, since they look at all this great work that's happening at this community level. We want to get more resources for this. So there's a data piece of it. there's also kind of a networking piece. A lot of these local groups are, because they're local, they're all over the city and they don't get a chance to necessarily interact with each other. But there's a lot of best practices that can be shared. There's like, rather than reinvent the wheel and each person come up with a template for volunteer signups or a list of best practices, how can we kind of consolidate some of this information in one place? Jenny had the idea of like a member space on our website where if you're a grassroots leader, you can kind of get a login and be able to interact with other leaders and post resources and get resources. So I think I may be missing some of the details, but I just think, there's kind of there's two pieces. There's like how do you get the physical tools to the place and back? And I think that's more of an operations challenge. We need some vehicles, we need some staff. But then there's this whole other bucket of like communicating, information sharing, data gathering, both like pushing out information and absorbing information that I think can be enabled through technology.
Sounds great. Well, this is a
Yeah.
great potential impact. So, I think before getting into the details or more details and more specific questions for the challenge that we had retained, is how do you believe that the databases that you have in mind now or connecting the different stakeholders is going to change things? Do you have any metric like we hope to in 2 years from now you hope through this disaggregated waste collection database and groups you hope to improve waste management by X amount, or I don't know what your metrics are, I don't know what our impact will be. It'd be great to have a sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we measure just high level, like how many cleanups take place in a given season or year, and then how many bags of litter are collected, and then we can kind of translate that into like tons or pounds, depending. So I think we had the goal to expand from something like supporting around 300 something cleanups in a I'll say a year, because that's, we sort of think of it, yeah, a year would work because that's the season. And I think we potentially want to double that in 2 years, and those would be cleanups that the sanitation department has somehow supported. So that could just be whether they loan them tools or everybody who collects bags of garbage it has to work with the sanitation department because we collect that. So that they would take the bags of garbage and either they ideally make arrangements with the sanitation operations staff to leave them in a certain place so that when they come by with their trucks, they can incorporate that into their route. So it's either, more hands off or more hands on. And I think what I think is that there's that activity is happening. So if we were just capturing more of the data, we might be able to get to that number rather quickly rather than needing to like create new ones. But I think there's a little bit of each. Maybe it's half of that gap could be plugged by gathering information and the other half by creating more resources to enable more cleanups to happen.
This
And
metric,
then,
what
yeah.
you're doing now, can be also part of the education content that could be added as a feature to this application that we're going to build. This application that's a kind of marketplace, connecting different stakeholders. I can see that it's both education and marketing if you share that number in advance, and then if you share an ongoing metric account, you get these different grassroots organizations more accountable for what they're doing and your own work, and people can see that in real time or not, but like some reporting can be made through the data that's exchanged on the app, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh. Well, that is very important to understand what our impact can be, I believe. I'm wondering, this movement of people and more grassroots organizations, would that be only in New York or also in other cities in the US? Meaning, what we're building now could be also replicated in other places, maybe.
For sure. I mean, we're focused on New York because we're with the New York City Department of Sanitation, but I think there's a lot of benefit. We for example, with our food waste policies and practices, we sometimes do consortiums with other city leaders, Boston, Seattle, Portland. So I think, that's what's great about New York. It's like, if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. So if we like crack the code on something that's really useful, I could see this being scaled out and be really, really helpful.
Wow. Well, that's very exciting to me, and I hope to you all as well. Does anyone have questions to Julie at this point? Please feel free to share anything you've experienced, to ask any questions on this impact, on what we're building, and if you
I
want to
also
start.
want to see if Jenny had anything else to add because I
Yeah,
rattled on.
Chris
But
is.
Jenny has more attention to detail than I do.
No, I feel like you did a great job. Everything. I don't think you missed anything right now.
Awesome. So Chris had a question. Maybe Chris, do you want to open?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any snapshots you can either send us or share of the kind of, I guess you call it, data reports that you're using that we can see? Is there like I don't
So
know
you
if
want
that's
to get into the details right now? Is that okay with you all?
Yeah, let me think about it because there's a person at the sanitation department that collects this data. I've seen it. It's just a spreadsheet of groups and let me see if I can find something that's sort of illustrative because it's very low tech.
No,
for now.
definitely that will help. And the other question regarding the first area action you were asking about the digitalized communication, do you have anything any sample or something you can share with us? You said um, online form. I know it's kind of all over the place, but it helped us to be a little more
Yeah, I
specific.
can share like what the where should I put these materials? Like can you add materials to Zoom? I don't know.
Can you share on your screen?
Oh yeah, I could do that, but
You don't need to. What do you want to do? I'm sorry. Just send a link. You can do that through the chat.
it's just they're not saved anywhere. They're just like things I have on in my email. So yeah, I can share with you
So maybe we don't need to
some
do that
things.
right away if you're not ready for this level of details, and we can share elements right after this call as soon as you can. If you feel like you're ready, you should have access to sharing your screen to a chat so you can link things.
Yeah. I think it'd be better, like I'd love to just kind of gather some things and send um
Yeah, and Jenny has joined our Slack, so she can also share this information with me and with the different teams directly on
okay.
where we share information as teams. If that's okay with you, Jenny.
Yes, of course.
Well, sounds great. Chris, your questions are they, just to understand and to see where you're going? What do you have in mind? Trying to categorize the information, the users, the interactions.
No, I was, it's always helpful for the teams to really be very detailed on what the um, agency wants. I know sometimes we it's helpful we start imagining things, and so it's always helpful for us to see visual what the provider or what the agency really imagines, and that will help us.
Gotcha. I was just asking in the chat if everyone had seen the challenge description before I switched to your question, Nathan. Nathan. So I shared a participant onboarding document with each team. Some of you might not be in a team yet, so I just want to make sure that you've read the challenge description, at least high level, so that we are all aligned on what to do approximately. So I'm sorry if not. I see that no one is answering right now in the chat. Nate, do you want to go on?
Yeah, sure. So I was just kind of reading through that challenge description again, and my question was kind of going off what Chris was talking about, of kind of like getting a focus on, or a clear path of what to focus on here. So it sounds like
Mhm.
the platform might be kind of like pretty big on what it's capable of. So is there like a specific piece of that that you would be more
Mhm.
wanting to have developed first?
Yeah, I think so the data capture is really important, like how we can get reports from different groups of what they've done, like how, so we're making sure that we're knowing all the cleanups that are happening around the city and what, how many bags of litter they're collecting. That I think is the first priority. The second would be like a good way of sharing among leaders, like that kind of member space we talked about, of like whether we can make available, like we want to make some downloadable flyer templates. So if you're hosting a cleanup in your neighborhood, you can borrow our template, just plug in the details of your event. And then you've got you know, an Instagram size graphic and a Facebook size graphic, and maybe a flyer to hang on some trees or whatever you need. Plus ways of like interacting, like, you know, basically a Facebook group for these leaders that's not on Facebook, but that's somehow, you know, a little bit more secure on our site. You know, we talked about volunteer recognition too, so that could be another thing that you could download or even upload, of like a little certificate you could give to your volunteers. I don't know, just sort of like a social networking space where resources can be available and people can, you know, even have a chat function too, of like, hey, does anyone know I've got this weird quirky issue on my block, like has anyone dealt with this?
Okay.
And our website is currently on Squarespace too. And they do have a kind of members only option thing, but it's probably very basic. But ideally, it would be great if these groups could like add events to the calendar, for example, like their cleanup that week, and all these different groups can add their own events instead of going through us or submitting something through us. Like we approve them to have access to this area of our website, and then they can just go themselves in and kind of add any events that they're doing, so that we have a kind of central location of everything, that's all the cleanups and all the kind of related events going on in the city. And of course, yeah, like any materials that Julie mentioned that they want to share with each other. So yeah, just an easier way for all these groups to connect with each other and with like us, and for us to be able to see everything that's going on. But yeah, it's a basic idea.
Wow. So I feel like this is going to take a lot of time to develop. So some of the people who are here are probably sweating a bit right now. And is there a core thing that needs to be there absolutely for you to pilot things? The educational content might or might not be ready. Might be, you know, crucial or not. For instance, what is crucial?
I'd say the most immediate and lowest hanging fruit would be a way, I'll send you this PDF tool loan form, but a way to like digitize that and make it available on our site, so that you can request tools, and then a way to report back after your cleanups happened, the metrics, how many people, how many bags were collected. That would be the most important, so we can kind of clean up the process that we already have in place. And then the kind of phase two would be all that like nice to have stuff with, you know, downloadable marketing materials, chat function, or, you know, message board, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. Anyone has a question on that? Maybe on the process itself?
Yeah, so users are basically requesting and like renting out tools from you guys, and then they'll be returning it. Okay. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. But right now, after they return, they don't, then the communication ends, and we want to be able to make sure that they, upon completion of the event, come back to us and say, this is how much we did.
Gotcha.
Danish, you're connecting from the US or
From
CEU?
Chicago.
Chicago, nice.
Yeah.
We have you from Chicago, David also apparently. You might just connect with each other. I see someone from California, New York, another Californian. Chris, you're in California, I didn't know. And Massachusetts. If we end up developing something, I think you'll have um, the opportunity to talk about it, to share this with the local sanitation organizations, maybe, and with the support of the Sanitation Foundation, at least to showcase what's been happening. This is really exciting in terms of impact, right? Sorry for the digression, but back to the questions about the process we're trying to support. Hey, David, thank you for asking. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, thanks. Will we have access to any of these users currently that are being involved?
We could probably have a couple test users. We have 2 folks that lead these groups that are working closely with us, so we could probably ask them to be, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, one other question. I guess the platform, are you guys thinking that the platform would be more, the product would be for the website, or is there also something that you guys are thinking is supposed to be a mobile app?
I think opens either way, right, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, we don't use mobile now, but I don't know. I haven't thought
Follow-up
about it.
question on that. I use the 311 mobile application. Is there any chance that we could test or at least pilot something so that it could be tested on the 311 application or a version of it? Would that be important? Like if I wanted to share with this new process that we're creating that I am putting some waste outside, how would I do it if not through a mobile application? Would I be able to do it at all or not at all, by the way, as a consumer, as an inhabitant of New York who can put trash out there? Should I be able to use the system or not at this point? First question.
Sorry, can you clarify that a little bit?
Okay,
How
yeah,
it
I had two
connects
ideas
to
at the same
311.
So, since I'm a user of the 311 application, which is a mobile app, this is how I thought
That's
about
how you
this.
use it. Okay.
And I'm an inhabitant here. I'm wondering if this system that we're putting in place should enable inhabitants of New York, of the city, to mention that we're putting a specific kind of trash outside, and then the app will connect us to the local grassroots organization that could pick it up. And you will have this way, a sourcing method for the waste collection.
We don't want anyone putting waste on the street without it being pre-planned. And the grassroots groups are not the ones picking it up. So they're just collecting litter. Like if there's stuff flying around on the sidewalks, they collect it and they put it in bags. And then they arrange, ideally using that PDF form in advance, they arrange with the sanitation department to say, on Sunday afternoon, my group of volunteers is planning to collect, maybe up to 10 bags of litter. And then the sanitation department says, great, take all the bags and put it on the corner of whatever, 8th Street and 2nd Avenue, and someone will come pick it up. So that's all pre-planned. We don't want anyone out there on the street saying, hey, I'm going to throw out a bunch of stuff right now. Somebody come pick it up. But I'm not sure if I'm getting your question. And I also will say we want to keep this separate from 311 because that's a very tightly managed citywide app that we can't interface with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that answers a lot. So how do people know about these pickup collections? Did you answer that already? Am I missing something? So how How does it work with people who put trash on the street usually? Does the app let us know when the pickup is going to happen, the pickup by the nonprofit? There's something I'm missing right now, and I'm not sure if it's only me or other people. So in terms of how the pickup, the collection works, I thought that what we would develop would be a way for inhabitants to communicate with the nonprofit who would pick up and supplement the DSNY, but it's not what you're saying. So grassroots organizations are organizing events, and then how do we know about these events so that we can put trash
Join them.
in it? Yeah.
Well, so that's what we wanted to help them do more marketing of the event. So the process is grassroots groups organize events, maybe on a weekend, maybe on a weekday evening, and say, hey, come to this intersection and let's all take some gloves and bags and litter pickers and let's clean up all the trash that's on the street. And then they collect it into garbage bags. And then they have pre-arranged with the sanitation department to say, when we're done with our event, we want you guys to come pick up these bags and take them to the waste transfer station or to the dump or wherever you're taking them. So the volunteers are just picking up little pieces of trash on the street and collecting them into bags. They're like, cleaning, not, I'm not sure the other way to explain it, but
I think I've seen it. Just street cleaning or area cleaning instead of
yes.
trash removal.
Yes. Trash removal should be happening on a regular basis. Wherever you live, you take out your trash on the designated day, you put it in your bin, the sanitation workers come and pick it up at 6 in the morning or whatever it is. We're not trying to interfere with that process. We're just trying to talk about the problem of trash flying around on the sidewalks. So one of the things we want to help these grassroots groups do is attract more volunteers. So that's where the marketing comes into play, and maybe the data collection piece too. If they let us know that they're having a cleanup, we can promote it on our social media. We can give them templates for Instagram posts and different things they can use to market it to their networks, so that we get more and more New Yorkers attending these events.
Got it.
Makes sense.
Well, yeah, it does make sense to me. I think the confusion on my side came from the discussion we had before you got involved in the first Ideathon. That was a preparatory event to this Equalithon, and we had discussed about there were nonprofit organizations that were doing some specialized waste pickup, cans, for instance, or plastic bottles, and they were interested in a solution that would connect them to the end consumer, to the person who puts waste on the street, so that they could pick up whenever this happens. But this would interfere with the DSNY, I guess, so would be a whole new thing to test.
That's different. I think what you're talking about is this sort of informal network of, they're called canners, so people that pick up cans and bottles that they can exchange for money. That's a whole separate thing. It's not an area that we're focused on, but that could be another good challenge for you as well. But yeah, I mean, technically that's illegal because people are then pulling open bags that residents have put out and combing through it. But honestly, we turn a blind eye to it because we think it's probably good because they're collecting recyclables and making sure they're getting to recycling instead of garbage. But I think that's an area that we don't want to meddle in right now.
All right, well, that's news to me. All right, good to learn. I see there's a raised hand. Nate, do you still have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, so after all that, it kind of sounds like the target audience for this platform would be those organizers of these volunteer groups. And we're really just trying to give them your two main things here is just to like digitize that tool request form and then provide them the social media outlet for the templates and stuff, but also give them communication between I guess they're volunteers and DSNY.
The first piece, yes. So we want to digitize the tool loan form. We want to gather data from them after the event and find out how much they accomplished, how many bags they picked up, and how many volunteers they brought out. And then I'd say the next phase would be giving them marketing materials they could use to recruit volunteers, and then maybe some materials they could use to recognize volunteers.
Okay. And do you have any idea of like specifically what kind of tools that you guys would be providing them? Would it just be like gloves and trash bags and?
There's a few different options. Let me see if the form currently has that. You can get just, yeah, they say shovels, rakes and brooms, bags and gloves. Yeah, they can kind of choose what things they need. So I will share this form with you so you know kind of what they're looking for. The one thing to add though that's not on this form is litter pickers. So the sanitation department doesn't generally provide those, but we have been purchasing more of those because they're lightweight. They're like little grabbers, like kind of little the more stick-like sanitation department gives out shovels that are like really heavy and like rakes and brooms, but the pickers are really popular. So you might be able to add that to this form and we could, it's something we want to make more available.
Okay.
Right, so I'm just sharing on the chat that I think on my end, we need a new definition for the challenge based on what I understood now. And I think I would call for those of you who are, designers and UX experts to redefine this together. So if you could send a summary of what you've understood on your end by end of day, if possible, and then I can aggregate all your answers into something that makes sense for the whole group. We can rescope things this way, so we're all at the same level, and share that with you, Jenny and Julie, and go from there. Is that okay with everyone? If you don't have time, it's fine, but we also have this recording. I just wanted to put that out there so that we're getting to align everyone. Danish, feel free to ask your question.
Okay. As far as measurement goes, is there any way users might be able to measure how much trash they've collected and maybe like win prizes based off that, or like some kind of recognition online on social media?
That's a great idea. Yeah, we'd love to do that.
Do you guys have like, is there anything like that going on currently where users might be able to bring in the trash and maybe measure it like that, like how many pounds of trash they've collected today, something like that?
We want them to be measuring that on their own and then reporting that to us. So we usually use bags as a standard measurement. So you can say how many bags you collected. Some groups weigh them, but not everyone has access to the scale. So I think bags is a good amount, and they should just take pictures of it so that we know that it's real.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for being so dynamic, everyone, and asking so many questions. So feel free to just unmute, and just go for it.
Another question. So what social media platforms are you guys already using?
A lot of them use Instagram and probably Facebook.
You have to hop on the TikTok trend.
Sanitation department uses TikTok. There's a very viral video of our former commissioner promoting some funny programs I'll drop in the chat, but we haven't gotten on it yet.
Do you have any celebrity or anyone that has some social media influence around you that could say something when we have some, would that be possible?
We have like some minor, like there's a guy named Neve Schulman, who I think is famous for catfish. I don't know him, but he is very into the litter cleanup volunteer program, and people seem to know him. He wants to do more with us. There's a guy named Buddy the Rat, or at least that's his kind of alias. There's a guy named New York Nico, who's kind of like a local celebrity. So we definitely have some folks in the wings that care about this program. Yes.
Interesting. Thank you. See another hand raised. Danish, you still want to ask a question?
No, I'm sorry, this is the old one.
Okay. Old hand. All right, it's gone now. Any other thing that we missed in terms of scope, in terms of users, what kind of data we should tie into?
I was curious on the second challenge. Were we going to go into depth about that? I'm not really sure, like, if the teams are fully established right now with everything. I know, like, when I signed up, I put it under that second one, but I wasn't fully aware of both.
Great question. We can still address the second challenge, which is much more open-ended for ocean waste management, right? So we can switch teams. We just drafted teams based on location and your skills, UX and development primarily. And there's also 1 or 2 data scientists and project managers. It's possible to change, so just let me know. On by DM on Slack. For the second open-ended challenge, though, we don't have a way to bring impact as much as we do with the first challenge for Sanitation Foundation, because we didn't find a nonprofit to support. So we can build something open-ended. It can be just a design, and then we can see what we do later on if we find a nonprofit in a future Equalithon, for instance. Thanks for sharing, Julie. Any other thing that we need to address? Any other question that you'd have?
One question I kind of had, and I'm not sure if there's other developers on the call, but I was wondering if they could speak on their website. Like, how do you guys know some of the technical part? Like, you guys have like a calendar, or like there are some forms that are being used on your website. How do you know, is there a database you guys have on the website that's storing this information? Do you know kind of how this calendar is, or any, maybe, do you know?
On the Sanitation Foundation website or on DSNY's website?
On your Sanitation Foundation website.
We just manually populate the calendar with our events. It's not pulling from a database, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, and the calendar, what does it look like from your side? Do you have to log in and enter that information, or?
To populate on the website, yes,
Yeah.
we have to be logged into our Squarespace, like back. I don't know how you explain it, but you have to be like the developer for it.
Got it. Thanks.
To enter the info. But we also have a Google Calendar that we list that's more internal. So we have like a human that like takes the content from the Google Calendar and like puts it into like more external facing language and puts it on the Squarespace calendar. So I like the idea of like, we'd also want to put, that was another thing I forgot to mention, is the grassroots events that are happening. They're not currently being captured on our calendar, but we'd be happy to put them on our calendar. So maybe there could be a form, and at least in the interim, it could be just an intake form, and then the human could put it onto Squarespace. But if there's a way to automate it, that's also better.
Yeah, and currently a lot of our forms are through Jotform.
Speaking of event organization and sharing that information with other people who can join, other volunteers, There is we talked about a neighbor social media. I think it's next door.
Mm.
During the last ideathon that we had. Do you have any presence there, or um,
The local groups might in their particular neighborhoods. We don't. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of them post on Nextdoor when they're doing cleanup events.
got it? So if we have developers here, maybe something to do to test before you can actually work on developing anything would be: is there an API from Nextdoor that we can leverage? What can we do with different social media APIs maybe to enable this information sharing and marketing for the events? In my opinion, does that make sense, Chris, Danish, David?
what was your question again? I was taking notes.
It's a proposition. I'm wondering if developers, are you a developer, Danish?
Yeah, front end
Yeah, all right.
mostly.
So one thing that might be interesting for you in the beginning, since in the beginning it's mostly going to be designers thinking about the process and what should happen on the app and scoping things. And so for you to begin working, you might develop a backend, even though you're a front end developer. You might prepare the data structures. But if that's not possible in the first 2 days, what you could do is maybe investigate the APIs from social networks that you could use, and what you could do for information sharing between the application to be developed and the social media like Nextdoor, so that the events can be shared automatically from the app to the social media. Is that something that's possible? Is that a good idea in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible to do that using APIs and stuff.
A bit more context on that is that idea is that usually we see that development time is crushed at the end of an equalithon, because half of the equalithon is dedicated to understand what to do. So first, talking with Julie and Jenny, and getting more into the details as we've done today, but usually that happens over the next couple of days. And then we have time for design and understanding the user experience on the app, etc. What's going to happen, and you end up at half the equalithon, and that's when you can begin to develop. So if you begin to actually develop the backend structure and learn about these API integrations to do potentially just at that time, you're not going to have enough time to do everything. So if you can begin now to think about what's possible to do in terms of API integration, I think that's probably going to help your team. Nate, you wanted to ask a question?
I did. So I know you you kind of asked this question before with like the 311 app, but is is what you want to have happen during this Equalithon? Do you want that to be a mobile app, or do you want it to be a web page kind of integrated inside of your existing site?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about an app, but now that you're talking about it, it makes sense. Like, especially if you're at the cleanup and you can just snap some photos of the bags and submit that,
Right.
mobilely.
But you can do that
I,
on the optimized web page as well.
yeah,
If
I,
that specific aspect is optimized.
I, I don't know. I guess my
Okay.
instinct is the web page because that's what we have and what we, utilize. But you guys are more hip to the trends, and like I don't want to keep us like in the dark ages.
What we
So
so in terms of
I'd be open to either.
skills here, the skills of the developers are usually not mobile skills. So I don't know, Danish, if you have React Native skills, but it's usually more JavaScript and things that can be used on web pages. And web pages can be optimized for a pilot. I think you can do it on a web page without creating a whole mobile application. That's going to create a lot more work.
Right.
If you have
Yeah, if, I mean, if the web page is responsive, it would definitely work fine too.
So that's my 2 cents. I think it makes it easier. All right, so I don't know if we are done with the specific questions. If we are, right? If we are not, we can also come back to that later on Slack. And just to end with this Equalithon launch event, does do you have anything that would let us dream about what we're doing, Julie and Jenny? Do you want to share something or a story of what you've seen in the past, or I don't know, something to go on? um like anything that you want us to remember for to motivate ourselves to to keep doing what we're doing for you, like back to the impact, maybe back to overall picture.
I think it's like the most heartwarming thing when you see, New Yorkers are known for being like rude or busy or, careless. And you find that there's all these pockets of people that are like taking their free time. I mean, these people using their own money and their own free time to beautify their neighborhoods and coming together. And that's why we're like, it kills us that we're not doing more to help them. And we're here, we're the government agency that's tasked, or we're the nonprofit partner, but we're all kind of in this together. We're tasked with keeping the city clean, and here are all these everyday New Yorkers that are pitching in, and like the least we could do is make it easier for them, support them, recognize them when they're doing a good job, and show the rest of the world that New Yorkers are really good people.
There we go. I must say that I always found the New Yorkers to be good people coming from Paris. So kudos to you. Well, it's great to get to know you better, Julie and Jenny. Hopefully, we can support you as much as we want, and let's connect on Slack when you can. And well, Teams, I'm going to be present, so don't hesitate to let me know on Slack if you have any more questions for how things should happen. I can also connect with you directly, one or as a team, to explain more things about the process, the solutions, the videos to be done, the presentations to be created. How things work usually. If you want to connect with mentors, if you want to connect with each other, I can send email reminders and everything. So that is said, then we can also support you in terms of finding jobs if that's what you want to achieve. Meaning we won't find you a job, but we can connect you with people that are in network, that have been mentors in the past. We have great mentors from PTC, Adobe, and different companies like Reddit. And now we're also going to be able to connect you with Wells Fargo, who has sponsored this event. So let's not forget Wells Fargo. And well, thank you, everyone. Thank you. I look forward to connecting with you in the coming days and hours, and supporting you all.